What's up, seventh graders?
Welcome back. This is Mrs. Cervantes.
And this is Mrs. Talati. And together we are Mrs.
Cervati.
We are going to get into our first video, which is 1.1, adding integers with same sign. We need you to open up your comp book to your first note taker. It's yellow. And in the first note taker, you will notice that your lesson title is already filled out for you with the 1.1, adding integers with the same signs, as well as your I can statement. So your I can statement for today is I can add integers with the same sign or same signs. Now what we also want you to do is anytime you see a key term, you need to fill out the definition based on what you see on the board. So to sum it up, whatever we write on the board, you are required to write in your note taker.
Yes.
So
you can add extra stuff as well. If there's things that maybe you want to change the wording on or make it easier for yourself, you can do that, but you definitely have to have everything that we're filling in filled in. And you can add extra if you want, but it can't be blank when you come to class the next day.
For full credit part, both sides have to be done. So to start this out, I need you to take a moment and fill in the definition of an integer, which is the set of whole numbers and their opposites. What that looks like is positive and negative numbers. And I'm going to show you guys right now that we are going to use a key for positive and negative numbers. So what I'd like you to do is, there's a couple different ways we can do this. If you have colored pens, colored markers, colored highlighters, you'd want to use a yellow and a red. If you don't have any colors, I will show you an alternate to use. So for our yellow, I'm going to go here and make this extremely big so we can show it. Make it even a little. Okay, so there's my yellow dot, and then I'm going to do the same thing with a red dot. You guys saw this in the Go Math guided interactive lesson that we did in class the other day, but in this key I'd like you to identify that the yellow is a positive and the red is a negative. Okay, now this is going to come up later, but I want you to also know that this is what we call a zero pair. We're not going to use this today, but this is going to front load you, and you guys should know that if you owe somebody $1 and you pay them back, you owe them $0. So please add this key because you are going to be looking at modeling integers with counters in the first part of this note taker. All right, now we're going to get into it. So we are going to use the counters for 3 plus 4. This is the most basic addition problem that you guys learned back in, I believe, 2nd grade. So to represent this with counters, remember that we are going to use yellow counters for positives and red counters for negatives. So we have positives and we have negatives. So if I look at my first problem, I have 3, which is my first integer, and it's a positive. So I'm going to represent that 3 with not a red. 1, 2, 3 yellows. And I'm going to add 4, and 4 is also a positive. So there's my 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I look at the total, how many yellows do I have? 7 yellows. They're all the same color, so I push them together and I add them. Now if we do the same thing on the bottom problem, and now we're looking at negative numbers, I have a -5, so I represent -5 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reds. And then I have plus a -3. My -3 is also represented with red. So I have 1. I'll get this where I go back and forth between my colors. 1, 2, 3. And then when I add those together, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my answer is a -8. Now listen, when we go into Go Math, you need to pay attention to the question, because if they ask you how many counters there are, some of you guys saw this in the interactive notebook, that there's 8 counters, but those 8 counters are red, which indicates a -8. So we will be practicing the counters in class, as well as in the Go Math activities.
Okay, real quick, going back, do we want to talk about, that was the counters, but then here's the rule? Same signs,
No,
adding
that comes
key.
in part 2.
All right, so let's look at model with a number line. So Ms. Talati did, these are actually different problems. So another method you can use to work with the negative and positive integers on the number line is to model it actually on the number line. So I can start at, for number 1, -2 plus -5. I could start at, I'm going to use what color? I'll use black. Hang on, pen. Okay. So start at -2. You can do this on the number line. There's different ways to do it. Some people do it above it. If you start at -2 and you are adding a -5, you're either going to go left or right when you're adding to it. Because I'm adding a -5, that means that I'm going to go add -1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces to it. And so where do I end up at? I end at -7. So I'm adding a -5, which means you're going to go to the left. You're going to go -5 to the left, okay? -1 plus 7. Do you want to add in anything on that?
I just want you
Do
guys
use
to
different wording?
No, I just want them to know that when we're teaching you guys these strategies, you can also think to yourself, what I just did in the last slide was the chips. The -2 would be represented by 2 reds, and the -5 would be represented by 5 reds. And if you push those reds together, you have the 7 reds. So know that you can interchange the 2 and check those strategies against each other.
Right, sometimes you're not going to want to use the number line. You can use, if you don't want to draw out the chips, you can use, some of my kids have used an R for red and a Y
That's what I
for
meant to
yellow.
say, yes,
Okay, so if you want to do that, let's go back, let's look at that real quick.
Yeah, add that to the key.
Okay, so some of my kids don't even use the red and yellow, like if they don't have colored markers or pens with them, so they just do like red, 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 and then they'll just use R's, okay? And then they just use Y's for yellows, okay?
Yeah.
And then when Ms. Talati was talking about the 0 pair, you can look at, you'll see this, if they have a red and a yellow, they know that those are 0 pair, so it just cancels each other out, okay? And equals 0, if you want to look at it that way. Okay, so then looking at the number line again, I'll do this one a little different. Some people draw it differently. If you have -1 and you're adding -7 to it, you might be at -1 and you're adding -7. So go -7, that line's not very straight, and where do you end up at? -8. So I've moved 7 spaces to the left. -1 plus -7 gives me -8. And again, like Ms. Talati said, you can do it the other way. You can say 1 red plus 7 more reds. So 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And how many do you have all together? You have 8 reds, so -8. Okay?
Now it's your turn to try. This is where we're going to leave you. So if you match up number 1 and number 2, you see here it says explore activity 1. That was the lesson that I taught, or the section that I taught. And then down below we have the number line, which is what Mrs. Cervantes taught. You need to be able to use these strategies in this lesson. So please, on number 1, follow the counters, and on numbers 3 through 6, follow the number line.
Okay. If you have problems, remember the great thing about having the video is you can rewind, you can go back, you can watch it again. If we talk too fast, we have been known to talk fast, or we're told we talk fast. Know that there's a way on the YouTube to slow down the speed of the video, and that has helped some students along the way too.
Last but not least, we would like you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is where all of our videos for the school year are going to be housed, is that what you say? Stored?
Yeah, stored.
Yeah.
Available.
And it is Mrs. Cervati is our, huh? Did I spell it wrong?
CDR.
Oh, hello, Cervati. Let's write this again. Sir, we just created this, so we're getting pretty crafty. Cervati. So youtube.com and subscribe. You guys, you have to subscribe because we're going to beat Mr. Gravias and his subscription numbers.
And then all of the videos throughout this year will all be there listed in playlists by module for you. So you can always go back before a test and use it to study from or whatever you need to do with it. They're there for you to access all year long.
And last but not least, if your note taker is not complete, you will not get full credit. So it's very important that even if you struggle, you try. Have a great day.